Alright everyone, today we start off talking about Twitter. Jack Dorsey leaves the platform. He's resigned as CEO and decided to wander off and become even more of a hermit than he already is. He's probably going to go do fucking iboga and ayahuasca and shit, and never take showers, although he seems to be moving in that direction already. Now the site, within less than 24 hours, this is a coincidence, by the way, we're led to believe. Wink, wink. Right after Dorsey abandons his site, Twitter comes out and says, we're changing our terms of service with regards to posting images. Oh, interesting. What's the new change? You're not allowed to post now without explicit, I guess, written permission, verbal. How can you prove it to Twitter? Permission to post images of individuals unless they're public figures. Twitter deliberately making this change so vague that it doesn't explicitly say, by the way, this is going to pertain to the media as well. We're actually going to police MSNBC or Bishop Talbert Swan and other craptivists. No, they can do whatever they want. Some of these people have literally doxed individuals before who aren't public figures. No repercussions. Absolutely, Twitter does not care. They have a blue check mark, so as long as they play nice politically, they're immune. No, but it will apply to Andy No. It'll apply to Tim Pool. It will apply to me. It'll apply to XYZ. You're beginning to see a pattern here. This is an attempt to rob the public because Twitter is, as far as news tidbits go, rather rapid response style because of its format, the way that it's built, and relatively large user base insofar as news, as in breaking news goes. It's got an outsized presence as opposed to like Facebook, other than a live stream there. That takes a backseat. Instagram would take a backseat. Twitter is not on the forefront of many things at this point and is a site in decline, I would argue. But as far as news tips and breaking news, etc., again, it's pretty close to the forefront. Now, before I get into this and its automatic effect, what I think will end up happening, keep in mind down below there will be a pinned comment if you're watching this video on YouTube with links to 5 other video hosting sites that I use. Keep in mind, I make several videos every single day that go on those platforms that I do not put on YouTube. Much like with Twitter, it is becoming more and more of a censored site, so there's less and less that I can actually talk about. Can't always give my real opinions on certain things, so if you want the truth of the Clank's wisdom, you have to use at least one of those 5 sites. I use all 5. But then again, I mainly make content as opposed to absorbing it, except for music, of course. Now, why would Twitter do this? Deliberately vague rule. It doesn't even define what a public figure is. Is this a person with a large presence online? Like, is Hassan Piker a public figure? So can you post a picture of him still or a meme of him? There's also going to be anti-meme because they're derivatives of a picture that is funny or intriguing. They get spread around virally. Well, now if that person complains, you're not allowed to. It basically defeats the purpose of having a meme on Twitter. Not that that's, again, necessarily as intrinsic as before, but let's think of a situation fairly recently involving someone who wasn't a public figure that this would apply to. Oh, the Waukesha attack. See, now I think we understand exactly why this change is being made now. If you were to have read just legacy media reporting about the Waukesha attack, you would think that an no-driver automated SUV, an AI vehicle, had decided on its own accord to plow into a parade. Instead, you get a situation where a rabid black nationalist, a bigot, who has made death threats and incited violence on multiple occasions on multiple platforms. This has all been scrubbed haphazardly by these platforms, but a lot of it's archived, so it's still there. You can find it. And it decided to plow through a parade. He happens to be, by the way, black. But you wouldn't know that if you read much of the legacy media reporting because they don't post a picture of him. He's not technically a public figure. I guess you get a little bit of fame once you kill 6 people and wound 40 others as part of a potentially racially motivated attack. Coincidentally, right after, not far away in Kenosha, Rittenhouse happens to be exonerated for his self-defense, which was, again, this would apply to that situation too. When you first saw pictures of the Rittenhouse kerfuffle in Kenosha, when you first saw pictures of it, you noted that there was a disconnect from the legacy media reporting. a lot of them at least insinuated that Kyle Rittenhouse went there with a chip on his shoulder to kill black people. But the only people that were shot were white. The two that were killed, and then Grossenkreutz, they're white individuals, not black. If this rule had been in effect at the time, any of those individuals, especially Rosenkreutz, who survived and was immediately on social media getting fucking money from GoFundMe, etc., could have complained and said, I don't want those pictures out there in public. I don't want people seeing my half-destroyed forearm, and gotten them scrubbed off of Twitter. Twitter has done things like this even outside of its own TOS before. You remember when I think it was pertinent to the Steele dossier, someone was named in there as a business associate of Biden and they wouldn't let you talk about it. I think YouTube banned it as well. I can't remember the exact circumstances, so don't quote me on that one. It was a while ago. Quickly disappeared from public consciousness. I wonder why. This is an attempt to prevent Andy Ngo from bringing you the faces of Antifa, which are so fucking funny. And police mugshots, things like that. Those will be banned potentially under this. This is to keep Tim Pool from showing you, hey, the legacy media claimed that this perp was a Klansman, but, here's the suspected shooter, and he's clearly not. He looks like he's from, Ghana or something. This is to prevent me from making funny memes out of, in some cases, the same faces of Antifa. This is to prevent citizen journalism and citizen activism because the truth is usually massively out of lockstep with the legacy media. The problem for the legacy media, big tech, etc. that peddle those lies is that we very often have video footage or photographs that countermand exactly what they're saying. We very often have evidence, sometimes outright objective proof, that what they're telling us is a lie. This is an attempt to prevent people from understanding this. The problem is that more and more people are distrusting the corporate media partners that have big accounts and almost no engagement on Twitter, which is also a mystery why Xinhua News has, 10 million followers and struggles to get 10 likes? Methinks that some botting may be occurring there, because it certainly isn't Chinese people signing up. Chinese people aren't allowed to use Twitter. Why the low engagement? Hell, there are people with 20 followers that get more engagement than legacy media outlets that have millions of people supposedly following them. This is also a trend, by the way, on YouTube, Facebook, and everywhere else. These people would all get their corporations banned for botting if the rules were fairly applied. But beyond letting them bot, letting them harass others, and of course, if you step out of line and say poo-poo too much, you get banned. Beyond explicitly allowing them to dox, by forcing citizen journalists and simple meme farmers to fight with both hands and a leg tied behind their back, now they decide to dump this in our laps right after the CEO leaves. I think that his leaving was part of this. I think that Dorsey didn't want to do this. He's like, hey, one of the biggest, most entertaining things that actually brings people to this site is fucking memes. Well, you've just made half of them against the rules. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I'm beginning to think that Jack Dorsey has been given the fuzzy end of the lollipop because somewhere deep inside, he actually was still vaguely libertarian in his leanings. Maybe he started going up against his own oligarchic group of social justice warrior bracelet jinglers that he himself put in their positions. By the way, a warning to corporate CEOs. Don't hire anyone who's woke for your inner circle and never promote them to that inner circle. Not even one person. Do not get a diversity officer. They will destroy your company, as we see with Twitter. A bunch of pink-haired bracelet jingling busybodies probably started harping on him and saying, we're going to go to the SPLC and say that you raped us or something like that. So you're going to have to allow this rule change so that we can get rid of Andy Ngo. He's causing problems for our Antifa friends over in Portland. And Dorsey said, no, fuck, I'm not going to be part of that, fuck it. I just won't be CEO anymore. You go ahead and collapse the site, but I don't want to be associated with it anymore. It'd be funny, considering how much he's worth, if Dorsey were to go off and create Twitter 2.0 to compete with his own former website. By the way, because he is an egotist and self-aggrandizing, and he reminds me of, that dude in college? He went off with the Hopis and he took ayahuasca or something once in South America, and he smoked a lot of pot, and then he thought he achieved enlightenment, and now is just a goddamn bore who thinks too highly of himself, but couches it in spiritual terms, so that he sounds sort of like fucking George Harrison in 1970 or something. Even then, I would still support the move. It'd still be funny. Don't even like Jack Dorsey, but I think at this point Twitter's less likable than its own former, now CEO. Thanks. So Twitter does not want citizen journalism. This is clearly an attack on that. This is not to prevent actual bad faith doxing. Twitter looks the other way all the time while people are harassed and abused on their site. People constantly, Talbert Swan, not that many days ago, had a screed on there talking about how all white men raped and enslaved and you're terrible and stop whining, making explicitly bigoted posts. He's still there. Now, if you were to change a couple of words in what he said, he wouldn't still be there. It's interesting how context matters so much to Twitter. MSNBC is not going to get a warning from Twitter for posting your picture on there and saying, look at this evil Nazi. But you can get in trouble if you try to defend someone who hasn't explicitly given you permission to do so. And you say, no, they're actually not. Here's proof, and here's the picture of them feeding Jewish orphans or something. You're not allowed to do that, not unless you have good media coordination. Who does? Oh, millionaire craptivists and billion-dollar media companies. How very interesting. Total coincidence. And the timing, coincidence too. That's about all. Peace out.